Hello, everyone. My name's Rob Williams. So just a 2 second kind of introduction to me, or a 30 second. 30 years in senior tech leadership across various different industries, from retail, e-commerce, entertainment, through to sport, property management, medical, etc. And a range of different kinds of organizations. SaaS development, software development's been a lot of my life, but B2B and B2C. I've been involved in public organizations, in PE, both PE funded firms and PE firms, VC, not-for-profits, charities, all sorts of different things. Right now, I run an AI consultancy called CPTO Services. We do broad tech consultancy. I have a number of fractional roles as well, around more and more around AI. I do due diligence for a growth equity firm around the kind of organization's ability to leverage AI. I'm a fractional CPO. I do a bunch of different AI enablement sessions with C-level execs. And today I'm here as the VP of Innovation for Softhouse. So Softhouse are a full service technology partner. They do things like this. They go out there and consult. They also go all the way end to end, down to having hundreds of developers that can build out AI and other solutions. They, in fact, it was mentioned, I have my own little AI startup called Prodigy, and Softhouse, I partner with Softhouse, and they built the kind of AI application. But more on that later. Before I start, I just want a couple of little caveats to today's kind of session. The first is that there are a number of different ways you can implement AI in your organization. I'm going to break those into three broad categories. You can build AI into your product. You can use AI for an analysis of data and strategic thinking across the organization to define new product development, to forecast, etc. Or what we're going to talk about today, really primarily, is something called AI Ops, and that's where you use AI, artificial intelligence, in order to increase the productivity of your organization. And also, I'm going to use the word AI a lot today. I just want to be clear, there are a bunch of different kind of areas of AI. You have generative AI, you have vision, robotics, speech recognition, expert systems, optimization, all sorts of different things. And so today, we are talking about that kind of generative piece. When I talk about AI today, I'm talking about generative AI. And that's AI that can create. It can create images, it can create text, it can create music, it can create videos, etc. But it's a specific form of AI. So it's generative we're going to focus on. Interestingly, as I drew this kind of picture that's in front of us here, I noticed the similarity to a specific logo that we will come on to later. So today, I'm really going to do one thing. I'm just going to make a statement. I'm going to say something that's reasonably divisive. And the whole presentation is really just going to be about that statement. I'll say the entire statement up front, then I'm going to back it up. I'm going to prove that it's an evidence-based statement. But that is it. One statement, and then some evidence to back that statement up. So let's get on with it. This is my statement. Much of your company's day-to-day work is ripe for AI automation. Yet we here in Canada are falling behind the rest of the world in our adoption of AI. It's a different story elsewhere. People are reaping the benefits and gearing up for the future of AI-enhanced business, and they're gaining a competitive edge that will soon be insurmountable. And the future is coming in two distinct forms, that of human-level AI and agent swarms. This approaching tidal wave will decimate many businesses, but many will be surfing it all the way to the end. You can be too, but only if AI is your next hire. So, a reasonably divisive statement. So let's dive in section by section, and let me show you why I have come to this conclusion and why I think you should come to this conclusion as well. Much of your company's work, day-to-day work, is ripe for AI automation. What do I mean by this, and what is the evidence? So recently, a World of Work survey towards the end of last year, reported in the Globe and Mail, talked about Canadian office workers and the amount of menial, repetitive tasks that they do each day. These menial, repetitive tasks are on the rise. Up to 37% of the average office worker's work. Last year, 31%. And The employers, the people in your organization, sorry, the employees, they want something done about this. The majority, 63% of them said, my employer isn't putting solutions in place to replace these menial tasks, this menial work. So how would we define menial work? Well, things like typing up minutes, writing copy, answering repetitive queries, drafting up proposals and sending emails, all those kind of things. Something that previously it was very difficult to automate. It's very difficult to automate typing up the minutes and defining actions of a meeting. It's very difficult to automate writing copy. And this is where AI has kind of come in here, and this new wave of AI tools. And I'll talk about how that's come about in a minute. But this new wave of AI tools allows us, for probably the first time, to automate a lot of this menial work. And when I say this new wave of AI tools, what am I sort of talking about? Well, let's have a look at a few AI tools in existence today that prove that AI can replace this menial work. And when I just really quickly, when I talk about that menial work and when I talk about these tools, what they're doing is they are taking unstructured input. They are taking a bunch of different words. Take meeting minutes, for example. What does meeting minutes actually mean? We take the transcript of a meeting, the contents of a meeting, all of that unstructured conversational input, and we have to convert it into a list of actions, into a summary, into a list of follow-ups. And turning that unstructured input into structured and focused output is actually where generative AI, large language models, where they shine and why these tools are effective. So here's a tool called Tactic that does exactly what I've just said, used by 300,000 people across the world, more now. What it does is it listens in on a meeting, like this meeting we're having right now. It reads the transcription and it uses generative AI in order to create a set of meeting notes, a set of actions. It can follow up those actions, a set of, or agenda, sorry, for the next suggested meeting. It will analyze the people on that meeting and say who was engaged and who wasn't engaged. It will understand from the context of the meeting what has happened in that meeting and whether or not someone didn't attend, whether or not someone was late, etc. Create a précis and all those sorts of things. Used by massive organizations, Shopify, Spotify, Red Hat, Canva, all these different organizations using it. Twitter use it, or X as they are now, etc. And it's universally acclaimed. Imagine a large-scale organization with hundreds of employees. Just think how many meetings there are. Think how many hours would be saved if you removed the need for anyone to create those meeting minutes, take those actions, etc. Here's another tool doing something different, again used by bunches of really big organizations like Black & Decker, Virgin, Datadog, Thermo Fisher, Siemens. This is Copy AI. Copy AI is focused on creating copy for the marketing team and the sales team in an organization. And it can do more than just create copy. It can scrape the internet, look at competitive websites, look at client websites, and therefore create customized, custom sort of bespoke focused marketing messages. An example would be you can take Copy AI, you can have it read your product information, then you can have it read a prospect's website, match those two things together. You can have it read the LinkedIn profile of the CEO and then create a bespoke, customized message to that CEO about how their company specifically would benefit from your product. This is something that it would take a person hours to do, but it takes an AI seconds to do. And you can automate that process. So again, think of the amount of time that your salespeople are crafting messages rather than selling the product. Another tool, Ada. Ada is a customer experience tool, replaces or augments customer service teams. Again, used by big companies, Wealthsimple, Ipsy, Wave. You can see Ipsy there saving $2.7 million a year by using this product. It reads your product information, your knowledge base articles, looks through previous support requests, and then acts as a frontline customer service representative, being able to speak in your tone of voice, answer queries, augment your customer service staff, and make them more effective. And I would be remiss if I didn't quickly put a nod across to Proddy, my own tool. Proddy is a replacement for product management or an organization or an augmentation of a product manager allows you to create product briefs, to write user stories, to create release notes, to analyze customer feedback, etc. But enough about me. In fact, enough about a bunch of specific tools. Suffice to say, there are many, many, many tools that are utilizing the newfound functionality within generative AI. All of these tools here have come about, or this list has come about in the last kind of 6 months, or most of these tools here have come about in the last year. They've either been new startups that have come about because of the burgeoning kind of rise in the affordability and power of AI, or were existing companies that have implemented and integrated AI into their applications to really take them to the next level. What's interesting is the tools I touched on there were generic sort of cross-company tools, but when you look at development's probably one of the biggest areas. Coding is one of the biggest areas where these tools are starting to really see impact. Sam Altman, the CEO of OpenAI, was talking to Bill Gates the other week. Well, he was talking to him a few months ago, but it was released the other week. And in that conversation, he said that they are seeing in engineering functions 3 times productivity for engineering functions that really adopt all of these tools. So imagine that. Imagine being able to triple your engineering capacity by adopting a bunch of tools and leveraging AI. AI takes on pair programming, code augmentation, QA, unit test writing, etc. Even maybe more interesting to me is this little box here, and these are low to no code tools. These have been around for a long time, the concept of not having to actually program, but being able to kind of drag and drop and guide an application to write the code for you. But generative AI is really like supercharging these tools to the point that I have a colleague who is a freelance engineer who is holding down right now, unbeknownst to the companies he's working for, 6 full-time consultancy gigs or coding gigs. He's developing for 6 different organizations. Each of those organizations think he is doing a full-time job because he is leveraging low-no code and development tools to enable him to build. He's still hitting all his targets. His quality of code is being lauded as better than that of other engineers these organizations are working with, yet he is able to hold down 6 full-time engagements because of this kind of concept of the productivity gain that you get. And all of these tools are great, and there is one underlying framework really behind probably 70 to 80% of these tools, and that is GPT. And I would be remiss of kind of talking about AI tools if I didn't talk about GPT. So this is the logo for OpenAI, who make GPT. Before I talk about GPT, I just want to make a point that in the survey that I sent out to everyone over the last week or so, I had quite a few responses, and those responses were really interesting. So what I saw was that the majority of people were using the free version of ChatGPT, which is based on the GPT large language model. I would just caution that if when I say GPT, you instantly think to yourself, well, you know, I've used it and it's not that great, it's probably because you're using the free version. The paid version is the newer model, loads more features, and a complete game changer. So I almost discount this sounds arrogant, I don't mean it to, sorry, but I almost discount the view people have of GPT if they're using the free version. That is kind of not comparable. Here's an example. Benchmarks showing that GPT-4, which is the paid version and the version behind most of those tools, is so far ahead, almost twice as accurate in certain examples and cases than the free version. And so what I'm really trying to get to here when I talk about GPT is showing this, that GPT is still today the best language model in existence. And there's been a lot of press about Gemini by Google, which, Gemini Ultra, the kind of epic big version of Gemini, is meant to be slightly better, incrementally better than GPT-4, but it's not even out yet. That particular version of Gemini has not been released yet to the public. So currently GPT is the preeminent model for AI tools. And it's a very broad tool. So I've shown you a bunch of specific tools there, but the interesting thing about GPT is it does all sorts of things. Again, looking at the paid version of GPT, it allows you to take an image and analyze that image. You could take a picture of a graph and ask it to then convert that into a CSV that you could put into Excel. You could take a picture of a set of, well, for example, my shelves, and ask it to list out all the books. You could ask it to then find out who the authors of all those books are, ask it to identify anything. I'm currently working with a agricultural company who is using this kind of image processing system within AI. They grow algae. They spray it onto farms, and they're using this to look at the tanks of algae and then have the AI understand and give a health check on the algae in that tank. Currently, what they do is they take the pH, they take images, they take the temperature, they analyze the water. The farmers actually take a sample of the water, send it off to a lab, and then the lab says, this is how the algae is doing. The AI is capable, just from looking at the algae, to actually start assessing the health of the algae in that tank. GPT also has things like data analysis, so it can write Python. I work with a few data analysts who are saying that now their analysts on their team are partnering up with GPT plus, partnering up with the data analysis piece, and it's increasing their productivity exponentially. They're really seeing real value from this. So just to park that for a bit, but to explain that GPT is behind a lot of these tools. And as I said earlier, the really powerful thing here is turning that unstructured input into structured and focused output. Well, if you think about it, we've shown that there's a bunch of menial tasks going on in your offices, but there are hundreds more tasks that could be explained as taking unstructured input and turning it into structured and focused output. All sorts of things, from contract negotiations to writing unit tests, from data analysis to pitch decks, from product development to customer feedback, etc. And actually, all of these things are ripe for augmentation by AI. This week, on Monday, the International Monetary Fund released a report. In that report, they said that they estimate in developed countries such as ours, and I'll reference this later, around 60% of work within a company is impacted or could be impacted today by AI. So that's my first statement. Much of your company's day-to-day work is ripe for AI automation. Yet we here in Canada are falling behind the rest of the world in our adoption of AI. Canada ranked last out of 10 countries in a recent report in terms of implementation of AI, deployment of AI across the organization. Countries like Germany and India are double that. They're ahead of us by a long, long way. And this has been going on for a long time. A survey back in 2021 found that an incredibly small amount of Canadian companies were actually starting to integrate any level of AI into their business. And this was logic saying this is going to be a problem back in 2021. And I said earlier, like, most of you are using the free version of ChatGPT. Most of you aren't really fully aware of what's happening here. When I talk about the tools to everyone on this call, most of you have not heard of Tactic or Copy AI or Ada or any of the other tools. The large majority of people on this call aren't really using these tools. And that's kind of echoed in the sentiment around like what is happening and what is going to happen with AI. So a bunch of people think that the hype, the press right now is somewhat deserved. More think it's mostly deserved. Only one person in the room who took the survey thought that what was going on right now is deserved. And therefore, most people on this call are not really concerned about AI really coming in and having a big impact on jobs. What's fascinating to me is the more you use AI, the more concerned you become. And so I would posit that you could plot a relational graph to show that whoever put down the 10 there is someone who's using AI on a daily basis, or like myself on an hourly basis. I use AI literally hourly. I have an AI companion that I can talk to, that I all day I'm sat there and asking her questions. She's feeding stuff back. Her prompt and her persona is that she works for my organization. She's always trying to find ways to drive things forward. Does my sales outreach, does a lot of my prep, does my proposals, etc., etc. And the challenge is that the Canadian kind of attitude often is to kind of wait and see what others are doing. So again, a report, KPMG report, different report, this one, again, towards the end of last year, only 5% of people said they're making concrete progress on their AIS strategy. So why is this? Do people not see the value? Do they think these things are really hard to implement? Do they have security concerns? One I often come across is security concerns. People are like, well, I don't trust it. So a quick sidebar on that, just for a minute. It's interesting when I looked at the survey results again for this group that 25% of respondents restrict or severely restrict AI usage. And when I speak to people, a lot of the reason for that is that they think that AI tools will use my data for training. If I put something into an AI, then it has that information. If my employees put something confidential into this AI, then OpenAI has that information. And then someone else in a different company may say, they may query my company and they may get access to that confidential information. Well, there's a grain of truth in this, but let's just be really clear on something. The way it works is that OpenAI, they have access to those conversations. They use them for training. Yeah, that's true, but only under specific circumstances. Only on ChatGPT free and ChatGPT plus, the paid basic version of GPT. If you are using GPT as an enterprise customer, if you're using the Teams account for GPT, which I would recommend everyone uses, rather than $20 a month, it's $25. You have an admin panel, you set up your organization. If you're using the API, so all of the tools we've just seen, then none of that data is used for training. Even if you're using the free and plus kind of versions of GPT, all you need to do, and ensure you put this in your AI policy, if you allow AI in your organization, all you need to do is just go to this website, privacy.openai.com, click make a privacy request, click do not train on my content. And from that point on, you are excluded from all training. At the point at which you've done this, at the point at which you've either clicked that button or you're using an API, so any tool out there, or you're using their business packages like Teams, then all the risk you have is that someone could access the encrypted data in your history exactly the same as Slack, exactly the same as Teams, exactly the same as email, Gmail, Outlook, etc., etc. So the big security kind of explosion that happened on day one of AI back in January of last year, when a bunch of companies banned it, seems to have remained for some of those organizations. Whereas anyone who's actually keeping up to date on what's happening and has a decent AI policy doesn't have any of those concerns. And by clicking a single button or by using the correct product, then the risk is exactly the same as any of those other applications I've just mentioned. So for me, security is a bad reason not to adopt this technology. Once you've clicked that button, within kind of an hour, you get this email confirming that you're out of training. So that's sidebar over. So we here in Canada are falling behind. And it's a different story elsewhere. People are reaping the benefits of this technology. So Accenture have a chief AI officer, recently did an article in Time magazine saying that she believes every organization should have someone that has that capacity to define the overall AI strategy within an organization. Accenture have built 300 internal AI applications over the past 10 months. Accenture, these big consultancies, they are all about efficiency, productivity. 300 applications that do things like customer proposals, meeting minutes, actions, and they built those. These tools actually are really interesting. They are not hard to build. A lot of the time you're working with English language. You're talking to the AI rather than having to build massive code structures around this. 300 they've built. I had the pleasure of talking to the CTO of Electronic Arts a while ago, and this article was in Games Industry Biz, and she was relaying this to me. They implemented AI early last year. Tasks that were taking 6 months are now taking 6 weeks by leveraging AI. Some things that took 2 weeks are getting done in 2 minutes now. And the quality is not dropping. Let me be clear on that, and I'll demonstrate and prove that out in a minute. Walmart have 100,000 suppliers that they negotiate with on a daily basis. They had a challenge that most, or not most, but 20% of those suppliers were too small for them to worry about. So they were just doing cookie cutter agreements. They implemented an AI bot that does their negotiation. They targeted that AI bot with 20% contract agreement based on how successful people were. The AI got to 64%. Well above the target. It was negotiating within 11 days. The customers, the suppliers were happy. They were saving 1.5% on these negotiations over what was happening before. 1.5% across 100,000 suppliers for Walmart. You can imagine what that looks like. They are now rolling this out across the board. Fascinating sort of point was that some of these organizations were using AI for negotiation as well. So you had a situation where 2 AIs were negotiating on behalf of Walmart and a supplier to come to a deal. Another example in the Harvard Business Review of an organization that rolled out generative AI across their customer service team. 1,500 agents were buddied up with AIs. Within 2 months, those agents were able to handle 15% more calls. The chat decreased to 10%, and the customer satisfaction rose. Also, the engagement and retention of the company rose, and they saw agents that had been with the company for 6 weeks behaving in the same way and performing at the same level as agents who had been there for 6 months. So a massive boost in productivity. All of these organizations are not Canadian organizations. So it's a different story elsewhere. People are reaping the benefits and gearing up for the future of AI. And this is crucial. They are gaining a competitive edge that will soon be insurmountable. A September study of 750 consultants by the Harvard Business School broke the consultants into 3 groups. One group, they gave 18 different tasks, standard consulting tasks, with no assistance. There are your tasks. The second group, they gave the same set of 18 tasks, and they gave them access to GPT-4. The third group, they gave them the same 18 tasks, they gave them access to GPT-4, and they gave them a training session on how to use GPT. The base group did well. The consultants with GPT did better. The consultants with GPT and training did incredibly well. They completed 12% more tasks, 25% more quickly, at a peer-reviewed quality level of 40% higher than the base group. Speed increased, capability increased, and quality increased. Please, please, please take away the fact from all of these examples. It's now pretty much well known that this stuff increases productivity, increases quality. There's no question anymore. This is really big, really important, and it's happening across the board. But this is where it's scary, because the more you use AI, the more you start to trust it, the more you see its efficacy rise. Regular use increases that efficacy, increases your trust. And as the efficacy of the AI platform you're using and your trust in the platform increases, you start coming up with more use cases. I run a session, a 1-day session with C-level execs across an organization. What I do is I go into the organization, I spend the morning, I sit down with all the C-level and relevant senior leaders in the organization. I spend the morning and I talk to them about the history of AI, where we are, why this stuff, how it works, why this stuff is important. I spend the lunchtime and I train them on how to use it properly, how really to get to it. Then in the afternoon, we brainstorm all the use cases across the business. And then in the evening, or towards the evening, what we do is we pick a use case. Using AI, we build out a business case, a team, a timeline in record time. It takes like 15 minutes to do all of that stuff. And we launch the project there and then. And when I go back to those organizations a few months later, the amount of use cases on that list, which starts at like 30, is now like 120. The more they understand it, the more they trust it, the more they use it. And this growth, this compound growth across the organization maximizes the benefits. This is a general purpose technology. So it starts to get fed into everything across the organization, and it starts to grow and grow and grow. And then something will happen, like a new version will come out. The AI becomes more competent. everything starts to get done even quicker. Even just last year, we started with GPT-3, then they released GPT 3.5, then they released GPT-4, then they released GPT-4 Turbo, like 4.5 is on the way, etc., etc. Like every single hike, everywhere you're using this stuff, it becomes better. I was speaking to Daniel, founder from Australia, the founder of a company called Relevance AI, we'll talk about in a second. And he said that they've got into the habit now of building tools that the AI can't quite handle, because they know by the time they finish the tool, the AI will have been upgraded and it will be able to handle the request. And this is proven out, a Deloitte survey showing that in organizations and individuals that have a very high expertise in AI, they trust AI more. And organizations that don't really use AI that much, they have a little bit, they don't tend to trust it that much. Well, that sounds logical. The more you use something, the more you trust it. But that's not logical. It's not necessarily the way it works. There are certain technologies out there today that the more we use it, the less we trust it. There are certain technologies, and I don't like throwing other technologies under the bus, and I don't mean to. I think that both of the technologies I'm about to mention have good long-term potential. But you look at something like blockchain and metaverse, both I think really important technologies, but the hype did not, the reality did not live up to the hype. So what actually happened was the more people use it, the kind of less they trust it, because they go, well, yeah, the hype was really big, but this headset's clunky right now. It's uncomfortable to wear for long periods of time. It doesn't live up to the dream. AI is living up to the hype. And on the other side, the more employees use it, the more interested they are in it, the more they start to realize, the more they use it, the more they realize how transformative it's being. And so unlike other tools where you implement a tool and it kind of, every, say, 6 months or so, you're implementing tools and you're putting something new in and you're seeing the productivity of your organization increase over a couple of years in a kind of linear fashion, this compound effect that the more that you use it, the more people like it, the more they trust it, the more use cases they do, creates an exponential curve in terms of productivity. And the danger of an exponential curve is no matter when you join this migration, this kind of adoption of AI, you'll always be behind the early adopters, because even if you waited 6 months and then you joined in, that exponential curve, while it looks like you might be catching up, you're not. You're gradually falling further and further behind. So those companies that are really diving in, your competitors, they're gaining a competitive edge that will soon be insurmountable. And the future is coming. Like, one thing to really be clear about is that this isn't hype that's happened in the last year. That's really giving a disservice to the people who've been working on this. We've been building this stuff since 1950s. We built the first chatbot in 1964. We built the first kind of model of what might be a Tesla back in 1989. In 2017, the first AI became the most highest rated Go player in the world. Go, remember, that's a game where the number of possible permutations of a Go game are more than the atoms in the entire universe. Like, it takes intelligence to play that game. And GPT itself, introduced in 2018, GPT-3 kind of changed the game, because at the time GPT-3 was invented, we kind of had this view of AI that it was kind of all these different language models were at this kind of level. And then when they released GPT-3, the power, the parameters, which is equal to the power of the AI system, was so far ahead of the game that we saw a leapfrog. And the release of ChatGPT meant that leapfrog, that power, was open to everyone. So really what's happened in the last year is that the tools have become available for everyone to use. It's funny when you think of pre-GPT-3 and you think of the way we measure these LLMs by something called parameters, that if you take that and give a rough analogy to the number of synapses in the brain of a creature, pre-GPT-3, we were kind of working with things that were less intelligent than a fruit fly. GPT-3 comes along, we're working with a hedgehog. GPT-4 comes along, we're working with something around a raccoon. These machines, these neural networks are becoming cleverer and cleverer, more and more capable. As we move up this graph, more use cases. As we move up this graph, they become easy to use. There is more value. At the start of last year, generative AI became more powerful. It became accessible to everyone, and it became affordable. And so that's why we're seeing what some people are perceiving as hype. It's the fact that this stuff is now there and available for people to use. So the future is coming. We are working our way up that curve. And it's coming in two forms. The first is human level AI. Some people call this artificial general intelligence. Think of it as a single AI system like GPT that is capable of doing anything that a human can do. So it could learn to play Go, it could learn to play a video game, it could learn to be a doctor, it could learn to predict the weather, it could learn to drive a car, etc., etc. And organizations are putting millions and millions and millions of dollars into this. Big names like Satya from Microsoft, Mark Zuckerberg, Bill Gates is talking about this. Google are moving towards this. Like, these aren't people who do things just because there's hype going on. These are people that understand the industry and are moving in the right direction. And already AI in narrow cases is having more success than humans, 30% better at scanning x-rays and detecting tumors than a doctor, better at predicting the weather. A new model just released a few months ago called GraphCast by Google, 40% better at predicting the weather than all of the scientific models we have today. But you think, like, you know, we're kind of moving up this curve, but to get to the perspective of a human is you know, that's just crazy. It's a long way off. Well, it's interesting, like, you know, we look at brain synapses and we think we'd even need to just build a computer this big. Well, this year in Australia, they're building Deep South, a computer that will have as many connections, operations within its hardware as the human brain does, launches over summer. So, you know, we're getting there from a hardware perspective. We just need to get there from a software perspective. And I said there's human-level AI, but there's also agent swarms, and probably the scariest phrase I will say on this talk. Agent swarms is a concept of, well, agent swarms is a concept of really based on how we as a race kind of came to be. So you've got this concept of AGI, you've got kind of humans, our intelligence, and you've got this concept of GPT right now, which is kind of less intelligent than we are. But we didn't sort of come to prominence as a species by having this all-knowing, all-seeing brain person go, oh, you should do this and you should do that. The way we came to be was through cooperation. So what happens if you take a bunch of different models of GPT? What happens if you took 100 different GPTs, gave them all narrow jobs and roles, and got them to talk to each other? Maybe a little bit like you might think of a company. So we give the GPTs different tasks. We create agents, a sales rep, a support rep, a researcher, and we give them access. We give them tools, access to Salesforce, access to the web, access to Jira, and then we create a workflow. Let's say we have a search agent, and the job of the search agent is to read job descriptions, search LinkedIn. Once they've found some people that match the job that we've given them to hire for, then they pass that information on to a pre-screen agent who connects on LinkedIn and asks a few preliminary questions, screens out anyone who gets the questions wrong, passes it on to a scheduling agent who books an interview. And this is done within seconds, the only constraint being how quickly it takes those people to get back. So I could go into an agent swarm of different agents around recruitment. I could type in, hire me an engineer, and then I'd go away and come back the next day and I'd have 3 interviews scheduled. Sounds like sci-fi almost, you know, workforce augmentation, workforce replacement. Well, there's a company in Australia I mentioned earlier called Relevance AI that are doing this today, and you can even sign up and have a free trial. And they use it themselves for all of their sales process, their BDR process. You can assign different agents to different tasks. You can give them access to things like look at websites, look at LinkedIn, go through your PDFs, etc. And then they can send out emails to people, and you can create this swarm of small focused agents that are doing this kind of different tasks, different jobs. And they have great success, you know, better at LinkedIn, better at emails, because it's not just like an automated schedule. You have an AI that is able to adapt, that is able to understand, that is able to read an email and relate back to the user and reply in a funny way. You can embed them, imbue them with your own company voice, etc. So agent swarms, not as scary as it sounds. Well, although maybe. I mean, you know, workforce augmentation is one thing, workforce replacement is another. So this approaching tidal wave will decimate many businesses, but many will be surfing it all the way to the end. The IMF released a report, as I said, on Monday. In advanced economies, about 60% of jobs may be impacted by AI. Roughly half of the exposed jobs may benefit from integration and enhancing productivity. For the other half, the AI applications may actually execute tasks that are performed by the humans. And in extreme cases, some jobs may disappear. This report, there's a caveat in the paper that says that this is purely based on AI today, now. And it says, we make no claims for what may happen tomorrow, or the advances in robotics, or new generations of AI. This is saying that today, if you took the state of art AI today, you could impact 60% of jobs. That number's only going up. Sam Altman recently said they see a 3 times productivity boost when engineers really adopt AI. What would your competitors do with 3 times the developers, with a 3 times productivity boost across the organization? Like, that's pretty staggering. Would they lower their costs? Would they undercut you? Would they build more features? Whatever it is they would do, they are going to do it. I'm going to read this one verbatim. Harvard Business Review, the turn of last year. Calling this revolutionary is no hyperbole. Business leaders should view it as a general purpose technology akin to electricity, the steam engine, and the internet. But although the full potential of those other technologies took decades to be realized, generative AI's impact on performance and competition through the economy will be clear in just a few years. Consequently, business leaders shouldn't sit on the sidelines and wait to see how the use of generative AI develops. They can't afford to let competitors steal a march on them. Big companies, Siemens, MasterCard, John Deere, small companies, everyone is getting on board. This is going to damage businesses. It's not AI that's going to damage the businesses. It's the fact that companies adopting this technology are going to gain such an edge. And you can too, but only if AI is your next hire. Across this organization, it's great to see that we have usage strategies. It's great to see that we have policies, as long as they're good policies. I haven't updated this slide actually. When I looked at it this morning, there was a few more people. Like, someone had a steering committee. Thank you, whoever that is with a steering committee. And some people were using AI in their products, which is great. But if I was to give you any advice, it would be take this seriously. Start today. Sign up for GPT Plus. I have no affiliation with any of the companies I mentioned in this presentation. Play around with Tactic. All these things have a free tier. Second, it would be go back to your business, send out an email to people and say, oh, we want to start a conversation around using AI. You'll find there are people that come out of the woodwork to say, oh, I'd like to be involved in that. Assess it, see where you have capability, create a working group, play, drive use cases, experiment. Again, I'm out of time, but there are so many examples I've got of where, like, just playing around has really driven something incredible here. It's exciting stuff. And remember, the more people use it, the more they like it. The more they use it, the more they see the value. The more they use it, the more use cases they drive out, and the more they realize it's transformative. Create a strategy, create a policy. If you need assistance, pitch time. But like, if you need assistance, find someone who can help you. Like, there's a talk recently. I think it was again a Deloitte paper actually, and it said that one of the fastest growing roles is that of an AI consultant or an AI advisor or an AI evangelist. Find an AI evangelist in your organization. One of the interesting things I find is that my engagements with companies are relatively short compared to your standard kind of consultancy, because what happens is you go in, you inspire, you find some people, you attach to those people, you help them drive. They start to realize how exciting this is and how easy it is. And then the organization just starts to take it and run with it and do it themselves. And like, it's like you teaching someone to ride a bike, and then you take the training wheels off and you kind of step away. And then you just receive an email 6 months later saying, oh, we've done this and this and this. Thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you need to get people in, get them in, but start doing this today. So that's me. We're going to go to questions. Thank you. My name was Rob Williams. My email there, my SHS advisory email, my LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/Rob Williams Canada. As you can tell from my accent, I'm not native. I've been here for 6 years, love the country. I'm now a permanent resident, which is fantastic. And there's a little thing there you can scan that has all my different contact details. I shall now stop my share. And I think we're going to questions.
Yeah, Rob, hello. Thanks everyone. You can put questions for Rob into the Q&A. There were a few questions in there already. I accidentally answered one of them. Rob McDougall asked, he said GPT-4 is closed. He's been on the wait list for a month. Any suggestions or alternatives?
Yeah, so double check that, because actually they reopened it up recently, and so you might have been just lost on the wait list. But I had this whole problem. I did a bunch of sessions and everyone said it's shut, but it was open again as of about a week or so again. So yeah, someone is saying they did. So yeah, you might be lost on the wait list. So you can probably go and just sign up right now. Alternatives though, Claude is the second kind of, in terms of a general purpose AI. Claude is second in that kind of ranking in terms of power. GPT still steals the march on Claude because of its multimodality, the images, all the other stuff you can do. So I'd suggest, hold out for GPT, but in the meantime, play with Claude. So let me have a look at some of these questions. Will Rob provide a copy of the deck? Yes, absolutely, and a video. I've got a cut down version of the deck. I see someone's asked what's the name of the HBR article about agent assistance. What I haven't done that I can do is put the URLs of all the articles in, but what you'll find actually is in the deck, I've got the reference down the bottom as to where it's come from, and then the copy. And so if you just Google a bit of the copy and the reference, you'll soon find the reference. But if you want to reach out, I can link all the full articles, research papers, etc. that I've referenced. I'm building up a little library. With these AI tools, where do we start? How do we find the right tools to use in our business? Yeah, great question, Edward. So a couple of Claude is interesting. Okay, I'll come back to that. But a couple of tips or tools. So first of all, look to your organization to see who you have in your organization that has expertise. I mean, the easy answer for me to say there, Edward, is hire a consultant, give me a call, and I'll come in and do it. But presuming that easy solution isn't what you want to do, the first thing to do is just assess the talent in your organization. You would be surprised at how many people are kind of maybe waiting for someone to say, do you want to talk about this stuff? And you may well find you have a few rising stars in your organization. Because the interesting thing is, and I speak to a lot of people in this field, there are a lot of people who've been in AI for like 20 years who actually are kind of missing what's happening right now with generative and kind of downplaying it a little bit, because it's like, we've been trying to do this stuff for 20 years, we're doing X, Y, and Z. So sometimes what you want is someone who's really been passionate about this for a couple of years, and has kind of ridden the wave of generative and seen where things are going and changing, because they're changing daily at the moment. Every time I go and do a session, I need to rewrite it the day before because something new has come out. So go into your organization, find out who is interested in AI, put out a call, create a workshop, and just get people to spitball, get people to talk about their experiences, and then have a look at your business and see where you could leverage it. What I do, like my workshop format is that like an inspiration and then kind of training. And then we do a session on where are all the places we think AI could have an impact. And then we, as a group, we rank that to value, and then we pick the top two and implement. Anonymous attendee said, is Claude available in Canada? Yeah, great point. Claude is a bit weird. So I don't think it is. I think it's not here yet. But what you do, just to quick get around it, all you do is you download Opera. Opera has a built-in VPN, and you basically turn on the VPN and you can select your country. You select United States. Okay, not technically legal, but easy to do, and no one's going to shout at you. So you can access Claude from Canada using Opera and the VPN. Steve, thank you. I wanted to say that it was super informative and very inspiring. Thank you very much. Like, great to, that's really all I wanted to do. This is like a tiny sliver of what I do, but I try to kind of get the essence and the message across, a little bit provocative maybe. Dave Miller says, Microsoft Copilot, where does that fit in the sort of chat GPT, Bard, etc.? Yeah, so Copilot's a great one. So Copilot's based on GPT-4. It uses a kind of hybrid of GPT-3, 4, and some of Microsoft's own kind of abstraction. So Microsoft are the largest investor in OpenAI, and so there's a big partnership there. So Copilot's using GPT, as most successful AI tools are, and it's a great kind of product. It's really interesting. I would say it's still not like, I use it myself. Like, I use a lot of these tools just to see what they're like. I would say it's still not quite as embedded as it can be. There's still things that it doesn't do very well. So it does a great job of drafting emails. You can go in and if you're using the 365 suite, you can go in and say, when was the last time I spoke to Laurie? And it will search team chats, emails, and everything, and say, oh, you spoke to her last week and said XYZ. So it's quite cool from that respect. But it still has challenges. It still doesn't work fully through calendars and bits and bobs like that. So it's a good start, Copilot. It's not as good as using GPT for like alongside using your kind of Office suite, but that integration is great. So yeah, someone said here, licensing 365 Copilot versus GPT Team, pros and cons. The only real big pro of Copilot, it is less capable and kind of less good at responding. But the big benefit is it is deeply integrated into Office. So you can't go into GPT Team and say, what was the last email I received? Now, interesting point, if you, again, this is taking it a little bit further, but if you use GPT Team, you get access to something called GPTs. And GPTs allow you to create a custom instance of GPT, share it across your organization, give it access to data, so you can upload files and train it on things. And also it allows you to have that GPT fire off API calls. So with some assistance and a GPT Teams license, you could potentially build something that would be able to look through your Salesforce data or your emails or things like that. So there would be ways to maybe do stuff, but Copilot's a great starter. It's kind of baked into the product. That's the big benefit. Right, so Joel makes an incredible point. Like, any professions you'd advise your teenage kids to avoid. Like, there's a version of this talk that goes further and talks about something called post-labor economics, post-scarcity, etc. Because I drew a graph there, an exponential graph of productivity. And what happens sometimes is someone will say, yeah, you drew this graph, exponential productivity, but at some point it plateaus, doesn't it? And the answer is, well, potentially not. Potentially it carries on going until eventually every job is an AI, and then you end up with business at the speed of light. So that's interesting. And let's say we don't go that far, but there are roles, there are kids today studying things that maybe won't exist in the future. Like design, I don't see design in the future. I know that sounds terrible. I don't see coding in the longer term future. I certainly don't see QA in the medium term. So it's fascinating. However, I would say study itself, critical thinking, logic, learning, and then the key is, it's fine, have them learn coding, but the key, I would say, is then have them partner and understand what's happening in AI. So if those kids come out of university in the next couple of years and they understand coding and they understand all of the AI tool sets that are out there, and they're aligning to organizations that are really pioneering and driving use of AI, then they can make themselves invaluable. They were there at the birth of this thing. So I do think there's power there, but it's a fascinating question. Okay, that's all the questions with 2 minutes to go.
Thank you so much, Rob. Excellent presentation. I've already had feedback about the rating and really positive comments. So, hopefully have you back again in the future, or, figure out some kind of a workshop or something if the members are super interested. And thank you so much for your time this morning. Excellent.
No problem. And hope it helped. And thank you everyone for having me and listening.
Thanks, Rob.